So, hello everyone. So, myself Anirudh. So, today we are going to discuss about placement groups. As you can see, so placement groups are a feature of EC2. So, it is used when we want control over the EC2 placement strategy. We use placement group. So, it is nothing but a group of instances can be placed in three types. So cluster, spread and partition. So we shall discuss about these three in detail. So we can place the set of EC2 instances in the cluster group or spread group or partition group if as these three offer some different advantages of their own. So let's discuss about placement groups in detail. So first one is partition, first one is cluster. So cluster is nothing but, so when we want a low latency and high throughput between the EC2 instance, we create all instances in cluster where we are not worried about the availability zone or we are not availability of a single point failure. We use cluster placement group. So it provides low latency as it is placed to as it is grouped together. Like the distance is come between the EC2 instances, so it will provide low latency and it will give us a high throughput. But the disadvantages of this cluster placement group is it is a single point of failure, which is nothing but it will be located in a single hardware. All the EC2 instances in cluster placement group will be underlying on a single hardware, which is called a single point of failure. If that hardware fails, the whole set of EC2 instances will fail, and it will be in a single availability zone. So no high availability. So it is single point of failure, and the main advantages are it gives a low latency and high throughput. So this is about the cluster placement group. Let's discuss about the cluster placement group hands-on in upcoming minutes. So next let's go to spread placement group. So spread placement group will be distributed across the availability zones. Like if we want some critical applications which needs high availability, we can use spread placement group where each single EC2 instances will be on that particular underlying hardware. Different hardware for different instances, not like cluster, it will not be in a single underlying hardware. So for this EC2 instance, there will be separate hardware for this. So for this, the separate hardware. Likewise, for all the EC2 instances, there will be separate hardwares for each EC2 instances. So this is the importance of spread placement group. So if we can launch these placement groups in multiple availability zones in a single region. So this is the main advantage of spread placement group. So the only disadvantage of this spread placement group is we can launch only wait, let's see, we can launch up to this is cluster. There is one disadvantage. Yeah, for dedicated instance we cannot use the spread placement group. So this is the only disadvantage of this spread placement group. So yeah, as you can see, group will be placed on distinct hardware, so it does not give us a single point of failure wala situation. So yeah, this is about spread. So next let's go to partition placement group. So partition placement group is nothing but in an availability zone we can have multiple partition of instances, like one partition which is nothing but one hardware. we can use up to 7 instances per partition. For distributed applications, we can use this partition placement group. So it gives us more opportunity to launch the instances in a single hardware. Likewise, it will be there. We can launch up to 5 partitions per availability zone, and one partition can accommodate up to 7 instances. So this is the advantage of partition placement group. We can launch up to 7 5 35. We can launch up to 35 instances per availability zone. So this is the main advantage of partition placement group. So by default, when we launch an instance in management console, by default the instance will be placed under spread placement group, where each instance has separate underlying hardware. It is not partition or it is not cluster. It will be placed under spread placement group by default. If we don't select any placement groups via console, by default it will be in the spread placement group. So come, let's go look into that in detail in the management console. So as you can see, this here is a placement group. We should just click on create. The steps is very simple. So just give a name called let's go with cluster. So choose strategy, cluster. We have 3 strategies as I mentioned earlier: spread, partition and cluster. So let's go with cluster, and you can create a group. So while launching an instance, you just launch an instance. Normal steps which you used to follow, no difference in that. So Amazon Linux instance type, give a key pair, network default, it shall be in default, no problem. Anything, so GB2. So here you should click on advanced details, and here you will get one option called placement group. Here you need to select the placement groups we have created. Here only you will get an option called create new placement group. Here only it will you will be directed to the placement groups wala console. So here you can select cluster placement group. So nothing, just launch instance, that's all. So here your instance will be placed. Oh, cluster placement group is not supported by T2 micro instance type. Okay, so it has particular, I forgot to tell you this. So only high sizes, high instance types only the cluster placement group can be launched, because it gives us high throughput and low latency. So T2 micro just has 1 CPU and 1 GB of RAM. So T2 micro can't be selected as an instance type for cluster placement group. So yeah, this is about cluster placement group, and likewise you can launch spread placement group or partition placement group as I have explained. So this is about the placement groups, and this is it for this video. So thank you for everyone. Let's meet in the new video.